right, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's unwrap today's Copilot tip. So first and foremost, multiple agents and Copilot capabilities, the uses and capabilities of these particular agents. And what I want to do is I always like to kind of frame this a little bit so you can kind of understand, well, why are multiple Copilots so cool? Well, first and foremost, inside of Copilot Studio, it really allows for us to actually configure these agents so we can tackle really specific tasks that are really around that domain of knowledge for that particular agent. So instead of one huge monolithic agent that does everything and is slow and cumbersome and hard to debug and understand, you can create really targeted agents then for those given scenarios you have inside your business. The cool thing about this is that these agents work very similarly to how topics and knowledge sources work inside of Copilot Studio, where the prompt aligns then to the agent that's going to answer that question. It's almost like having a room full of people where you ask a question and then the people that know that knowledge source speak up and tell you, well, this is the information I have on it. And what's really cool about this is that lightweight agents can really connect to kind of any type of environment inside of your tenant, right? So it's a really cool concept to really expand upon what agents can do. Now, why would you want to use multiple agents inside of the Microsoft stack? And first and foremost, it really just allows you to focus an agent and really secure it, right? So if you think about security, for example, when you have agents that can connect to so many different things, it's like, well, wait a second, I want to really harness this and only be very specific then to the securables that that particular agent tackles, such as maybe looking up just purchase orders, or maybe looking up, for example, just leads or opportunities in a different system. So once again, it's a really important concept because it allows you to compartmentalize really that security related to those agents. And the one thing to note here, if you don't know about Microsoft, is that remember from an agent perspective, it doesn't matter how many agents you have. It really matters about, for example, the consumption of those particular agents. So you can build separate agents and then still have the same dollar impact as you would have having one big agent, for example. Finally, for scalability, speed, and accuracy, it really helps with the refinement around this. When you have an agent where you put instructions inside of Copilot Studio, for example, to tackle whatever that agent needs to do, remember those instructions are typically added to the conversation either with each query in the background or they're referenced as it goes through and answers those particular questions. Well, the problem with that is that if you need to be more specific on a format that you want for purchase orders, you have to put that into the instructions or build complex topics that are related to it. Whereas if you build agents that are separate with each of these, what you can then do is you can put the instructions on how you want the agent to respond more uniformly than inside of your environment. On top of that, you can take these agents and then scale them. You can create multiple agents that reference these different child agents to get the same information that may be needed to answer a question in a different context as well. So once again, these multi-agent configurations really do help you, obviously, with that speed, scalability, and then securable aspect as well. So really quickly here, what are some common configurations? And then, as with anything that's a demonstration, we're going to show software as we go through this. So first and foremost, agents can communicate with some type of buffer, as I call it. So a Dataverse table, for example, or an API that's used then to relay that information. Now, this was really the first multi-agent configurations that I worked on almost a year ago or more now at this point, where basically I would pass information between agents by having a table inside of Dataverse that would convey that information, and then they would have triggers to react off of it. So once again, a really cool concept that then allows you to use, as you can imagine, then these agents in a scalable fashion. And quite candidly, this might be a better scenario than using agents in Copilot Studio as child agents, because maybe you want to do some trigger logic, or maybe it informs some other Power Automate to do additional business processing. But once again, it's one of those design configurations. Another one is using, obviously, external agents using APIs, for example, using Power Automate. So tools, as we call them now, can actually call out to Power Automate, and then you can do HTTP requests and things of that nature. So this is a really cool concept, right? Where an agent can directly communicate with different APIs that are external then to that agent without then saving to a table. It can just call that information as it goes through and does that processing. And then finally, the one that Microsoft added recently is the native capability to use the add agent capabilities inside of Copilot Studio. So once again, this is another concept then that can be used to really then kick off the use of these multi-agent configurations to really increase that scalability, performance, and security inside of your environment. Now with that, this wouldn't be a 12 days of Christmas without a demonstration. So let's go ahead and open up my demo environment. So I've got a couple examples I want to show through, and one of them that I'm going to show through just really quickly here to start is going to be this agent that's called our sales research agent. Now, one of the things that people don't commonly know about this, because they don't look at the architecture behind it commonly, is the fact that this sales research agent actually goes through and does processing using multiple agents to get the results that are then displayed to the user. So this is an example of where you could build an app, for example, that then has agents that you embed to tackle different types of scenarios of gathering that data, looking at leads and opportunities, refining that data, and doing all these different types of actions with it to then come up with a consistent story around it. So just as an example, as the processing finishes, what we can see here is that we have in our research agent a bunch of information that we can ask questions around. We can see, for example, our open pipeline, the number of closed deals that are related to it. And instead of running one agent that does this, if we click on, for example, our assist edit here and say show the work that's related to it, we can see that there are 4 different agents that actually ran through this process to do the high-level plan, to look at the data sources related to it, to do the research information that's related to it, and then finally to build the user experience for the bubble charts and all the different graphs that we see inside of here. So this is an example then of using multiple agents that's in a standard out-of-the-box based Microsoft capability to really drive that. Now, this is really cool, right? Because number one, it starts to expand a little bit more on what we've even seen for research. For example, Anthropic actually did a multi-agent configuration to identify the top executive team leaders for the Fortune 500 companies by using publicly available information. And when they did that with one agent, it was 70% successful. But when they did it with a 4-agent configuration, they got to a 99.9% accuracy around that. So what we're seeing is that we can increase accuracy by using these multi-agent configurations. Now, how could you do this as an end user? And I wanted to create a really simple example because maybe you've got CE and you've got ERP or F&O or BC or whatever it may be, and you want to ask questions of this, right? So just as an example here, I have an agent. I've got 3 different agents that are inside of here. I've got my company-wide manager agent, and I've got my sales agent and my F&O MCP agent. This is a little bit of a highlight here because the model context protocol is now something that we can use, which is really cool. We're going to do another 12 days of Copilot on that, obviously. So on our company-wide manager agent, we don't have any knowledge related to this particular agent. We have no topics that are here. We just have, for example, on the agents here, a reference to these other agents. And in this reference of these agents, if we click on them, for example, to take a look at them, we can see the description that is then used to basically pass information from this agent then to the child agent related to it. And the cool thing about this is that I actually built the Dynamics 365 MCP agent weeks ago and just added it then to this agent, and I didn't have to basically build an agent then from within this particular agent. I can actually relate it to existing agents that you have actually deployed inside of your environment. Now, one of the things that I could do here would be, for example, come in, we'll go to our overview just really quickly, and I could ask a question. What is my on-hand quantity for release product A0001, right? What's cool about this? If I go ahead and click on enter, what happens here as we look at the activity that occurs is that it'll actually go through and then use the agent capabilities to align then basically the agent steps that are related to it. So as you can see here, it identified, well, with that question that was asked, that I need to go to the Dynamics 365 F&O MCP agent. And the MCP agent, what it did is it actually navigated the application. Like if you haven't heard about this, this is so cool. Not only did it actually call the right agent, but it called an agent that can actually navigate through the user interface. So it found, for example, the menu item that's our inventory on hand. It opened that menu and it filtered that grid down to give me the product quantity information that's then displayed here. So this is an example now of where applications are being designed by Microsoft where AI can actually interact with them. Now I'm running out of time here, but I want to show one more scenario here as well. Let's talk about like sales. Do I have any leads for Gerald Steffens, right? Can you give me some information regarding that particular lead? And what happens here is that what it will actually do is not use the MCP agent, but it will actually use the Dynamics 365 sales agent. And in the Dynamics 365 sales agent, we have a topic set up, a knowledge source set up for Dataverse for leads and opportunities that it uses to then grab that information and then display it here as part of that process. So the reason I showed these just really quickly so we could pop through them so you could see what they do as we go through the processing, but you can see here that you can actually then use this to really then drive multi-agent configurations to really get to that success that you're looking for. And then once again, really hyper-focus those agents, which is a really cool concept inside of the Dynamics 365, M365, and Copilot stack.